Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of sources, the research, the critiques, the case studies, and build you a personalized roadmap to deep knowledge. Today, we are tackling a concept that, for decades, has promised to unlock career success and, superior leadership. Emotional intelligence, or EI, famously known as EQ.
It's a psychological concept that launched 1,000 corporate training sessions. The popular narrative, which is widely spread by Daniel Goleman starting in the mid-90s, was that EQ matters more than IQ. But as we dove into your sources, we realized the scientific definition and the application of EI is, it's far more complex and contentious than the boardroom version.
Exactly. Our mission is to unpack the reality of EI, reveal the crucial scientific distinction between the two major ways researchers define it, and show you why understanding that measurement difference is so essential when you're trying to build resilience or staff a high-performing team.
To set the stage, it's worth noting that the idea of a non-cognitive intelligence isn't new at all. The deep roots of EI go all the way back to 1920 with the psychologist E.L. Thorndike. He had this concept of social intelligence.
So social intelligence, that's a great historical starting point. So what did Thorndike define that as?
He defined it as the ability to understand and manage people and to act wisely in human relationships. So nearly a century ago, scholars were recognizing that success wasn't just about academic smarts.
You needed people smarts too.
You needed people smarts. And that concept then evolved through figures like Howard Gardner in the 80s, right?
Right, with his multiple intelligences.
Correct. Gardner broke intelligence into multiple types. And EI's most proximal roots come directly from two of those. Intrapersonal intelligence, that's the capacity to deeply understand yourself, your own fears, desires, and limits. And interpersonal intelligence, the capacity to understand the intentions, desires, and motivations of others. EI basically took those two ideas and tried to make them measurable.
And then, as we know, Daniel Goleman took that baton and just ran with it, framing EI into that famous, highly digestible quadrant model that the corporate world still loves. Let's walk through that framework, because it's the blueprint most people are trying to follow.
Absolutely. So Goleman's 2002 model structures EI into 4 sequential domains. It moves from awareness of yourself to managing relationships with other people.
And the foundation, the place where all this has to start, that's self-awareness.
That's where everything begins. Exactly. Simply being able to read and understand your own emotions and recognize how those emotions are impacting your performance and the people around you. It involves accurate self-assessment and, a realistic level of self-confidence.
The sources outline a pretty complex, almost continuous process here, like a 7-step loop of emotional awareness. You sense it, you acknowledge it, identify the facts, accept it, reflect, act, and then you reflect on how useful your reaction was. That sounds exhausting, but necessary.
It is the work of emotional maturity. And if you can nail that, you can move to the next domain, self-management. This is where you actually regulate or control what you do with those internal states.
Right. So self-management is where we find competencies like emotional self-control, adaptability, optimism. And this is the domain where we run into that highly memorable concept, the amygdala hijack.
It's a vivid term for a very real biological process. The amygdala is our brain's emotional switchboard. When it gets overstimulated, usually by stress or a perceived threat, it effectively floods your prefrontal cortex.
The thinking part of your brain.
The thinking part of your brain with emotion.
So you're not just feeling angry or stressed. You are, for a moment, actually incapable of high-level reasoning.
Precisely. You get hyper-focused on the thing that triggered you, like an email that was phrased poorly, and you lose sight of the bigger picture. The goal of self-management is using techniques, like delaying your response or reframing the situation to bring your mental clarity back before you send that reply all email.
So once we have our internal awareness and regulation skills active, we can then look outward to social awareness.
This is the skill of accurately noticing and reading the emotions of others and correctly interpreting the social dynamics of a situation. The single most important competency here is empathy.
I had always assumed empathy and sympathy were kind of interchangeable, but the sources are so firm that there is a crucial distinction. Why is mistaking sympathy for empathy so damaging in, say, a leadership role?
Because they lead to radically different actions. Sympathy is just feeling bad for someone.
Yeah.
Empathy involves identifying what they feel, sharing that emotion as a way to understand their perspective, and then proactively wishing to improve their experience.
So a leader acting out of sympathy might just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and stop there.
Right. But an empathetic leader uses that insight to inform a decision. They understand the why behind the emotion, and address the root cause, which is, that's the core of effective leadership.
And that deeper understanding flows directly into the final domain, relationship management.
The ultimate application. This is about managing relationships and influencing others toward a common goal based on the social awareness you just gained. This is where we see all those big leadership competencies. Inspirational leadership, conflict management, teamwork. It's where your insight about people translates into strategic action.
So that Goldman mixed model gives us this fantastic, easy-to-follow blueprint for becoming a better leader. But if that model is the blueprint, we have to know if the foundation is scientifically sound. And here's where we hit the core conflict, the fundamental academic divide in the literature.
This is the core takeaway for you as a learner. Emotional intelligence is not one monolithic thing. The field completely splintered, and it was all based on how researchers tried to measure it. We have to draw an explicit line between ability EI and trait EI.
Okay, so how do we differentiate these two? It sounds very technical, but it seems crucial to know which one you're even talking about.
Let's focus on the implication. Ability EI treats emotional reasoning like mathematics.
Right and wrong answers.
Exactly. It measures emotion-related cognitive abilities, your actual talent for perceiving, understanding, and regulating emotions. The key here is that it's assessed using maximum performance tests, just like an IQ test. They're looking for correct or incorrect answers.
So ability EI is asking, what is your actual demonstrable skill level?
Yes. Now, trait EI asks a totally different question.
Yeah.
It asks, how confident do you feel about your skills? Trait EI is all about emotion-related self-perceptions. It's trait emotional self-efficacy. It's located firmly within the domain of personality, and it's measured by self-report questionnaires like a standard personality test. There are no right answers, only your typical behavior.
So one is a measure of pure skill, the other is a measure of self-confidence in your inherent personality style. And the data confirms they barely correlate at all.
Invariably low correlation.
Wow.
They're tapping into fundamentally different things, even though they share the name emotional intelligence. And this distinction leads us to a fascinating scientific controversy surrounding the measurement of ability EI.
The sources refer to the primary ability EI test, the MSCE, as a scientific cul-de-sac. That implies a major, possibly unsolvable problem.
The problem is how to score an emotional ability test objectively. If I ask you, what is the best response when a colleague is crying?
Yeah.
How can a researcher say your answer is definitively correct?
Mm-hmm.
The MSCE tries to solve this by using scoring procedures like consensus scoring or expert scoring.
Wait, consensus scoring?
Yeah.
So if enough people agree on an emotionally correct answer, that makes it a true measure of intelligence. That feels, well, completely backwards.
That is the core critique.
Right.
Critics argue that these consensus scores aren't measuring genuine emotional ability at all. They might just be measuring confounding factors.
Like what?
Like, are you actually emotionally intelligent, or are you just really good at guessing what the prevailing social norm is for that emotional situation?
So the high scorer might just be the person who has the best social script memorized,
Yeah.
or who has a really wide vocabulary for emotions, not necessarily the person who can actually handle the situation.
A perfect analogy. It's like grading a test on the meaning of a poem by asking 1,000 random people what they think it means. The conclusion for many is that the psychometrics of the MSCE are just. They're fundamentally broken.
And improving the text won't fix the underlying problem of how you score it.
Exactly.
By contrast, trait EI just avoids this mess entirely by embracing the subjectivity of self-perception.
That's right. Because it's a personality measure, it operates on a different logic.
Yeah.
The main instrument here is the Trait Emotional Intelligence Questionnaire, or TEIQ. It covers the construct comprehensively and, importantly, the source is cited as having superior predictive validity for its specific domain compared to other self-report measures.
Okay, let's turn this from academic debate to real-world impact. Does EI actually predict success in the workplace over and above our traditional measures like IQ or general mental ability and the big 5 personality traits?
Well, looking at the large meta-analyses, the overall correlation between all streams of EI and job performance is modest. It lands somewhere between 0.24 and 0.30. But here's the crucial finding. EI isn't replacing IQ, it's supplementing it.
How so?
The self-report measures, which include those mixed models popularized by Goldman and others, they demonstrate what we call incremental predictive validity. It means that if you already know a person's cognitive ability and their big 5 personality profile, adding their EI score gives you an extra unique piece of the puzzle that significantly improves your prediction of their job performance.
The gold standard of prediction just got better. But wait. If the ability EI test is seen as scientifically flawed, why does the broader mixed model, which often relies on self-report like trait EI, show the greatest incremental value? Isn't that counterintuitive?
It's a great question, and it actually reinforces the critique. It suggests that success in the organizational world is less about your raw, abstract emotional skill.
The ability AI.
Right. And it's much more about the behavioral things that get captured by trait EI and mixed models. Self-confidence, your social disposition, your drive, your optimism. These are the things managers actually see and reward.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's make this concrete with some real-world examples of high EQ in practice. Take Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet and Google.
Pichai is held up constantly as an exemplar of high EQ leadership. He's known for this extraordinary humility and empathy, even in a role that demands constant strategic ruthlessness. The sources cite his ability to cultivate psychological safety, that feeling that employees can speak up, take risks, and even fail without fear of retribution.
And his leadership style demonstrates that balance we talked about. His strategic decisions aren't just analytical, they always consider the human impact. For instance, when he's navigating a major industry transition or restructuring, he communicates complex changes with a clarity and consideration that maintains morale, even during difficult times.
Another fantastic example is Stephen Bartlett, the entrepreneur behind Social Chain and Diary of a CEO. He demonstrates high EQ through his known bounce-back ability, this incredible resilience to setbacks. When he faces criticism or when a business venture fails publicly, he doesn't seem to internalize it as some kind of personal flaw.
He seems to view criticism as data.
Precisely. The sources note that he frequently discusses his personal growth journey, which shows remarkable self-awareness and self-management. He's actively transparent about his struggles, which builds bonds and credibility. That's a great example of relationship management in action.
It's also being incorporated institutionally, right?
Right.
Johnson & Johnson is cited as an organization that takes EI training seriously.
They absolutely do. J&J integrates Goldman's domains, self-awareness, self-management, and so on, into their leadership development programs. And crucially, they evaluate leaders not just on what business results they achieve, but how they achieve them. They actually mandate that leaders demonstrate empathy and collaboration as a measured part of their performance review.
So these examples, focusing on resilience, self-control, self-confidence, they all strongly suggest that trait EI is a really powerful predictor. Let's look deeper at what high trait EI predicts outside of just job performance and leadership.
Because trait EI is rooted in self-perception and personality, it's an incredible buffer against adversity. High trait EI predicts better well-being outcomes. Things like adaptive coping styles, overall happiness, and significantly lowers stress and burnout. It's like an internal shield.
And the clinical relevance seems enormous.
It is. Trait EI is a powerful negative predictor of psychopathology. One striking finding relates to self-harm in adolescents. Studies show that if an adolescent's TI score is below a specific threshold, the likelihood of them engaging in self-harming behavior jumps to 75%.
Wow.
It shows that emotional self-efficacy, that confidence in managing your own feelings, is a critical psychological resource.
That's a profound finding. Does this resource help with purely academic pursuits, though?
Not generally. Trait EI does not show strong direct associations with overall academic grades. However, it provides a critical safety net. There's a strong moderating effect. High trait EI is positively related to performance, but only in students who are classified as having low IQ.
That is a fantastic nuance. So when your sheer cognitive horsepower isn't enough to handle a challenging academic load, trait EI steps in to help you manage the stress, organize yourself, and persist where others might burn out.
It helps when your intellectual resources are outweighed by the situational demands. It provides the grit necessary to succeed.
This has been a true deep dive into the complexity of EQ. As we close, what is the single most important lesson we should take away about applying this knowledge?
The core learning is that EI isn't one thing, whether it's a skill ability or a personality resource trait that defines its measurement and its meaning. And if you want to improve, you have to follow Goldman's structure and start at the base. Self-awareness.
And that is a huge hurdle. We noted that staggering statistic. 95% of people rate themselves highly on self-awareness, but only 10 to 15% are empirically self-aware. We are fundamentally bad at assessing ourselves.
We are, and it's especially difficult for leaders and managers who are the least likely to receive honest, constructive criticism. To truly bridge that gap, you need objective data and outside perspective. Often that's obtained through formal instruments like a 360-degree emotional intelligence assessment. That is the key mechanism for genuine growth.
And finally, let's connect this back to the modern organizational environment. Leaders today are often navigating environments described by the BALANI acronym: brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible.
That BAN-NI framework describes chaos. Brittle because things break easily. Anxious because of constant uncertainty. Nonlinear because cause and effect are disconnected. And incomprehensible because of information overload. EI, particularly the traits of resilience and adaptability, helps leaders and teams build the psychological stability they need to navigate this chaos and stay focused.
And we have to stress that while AI technology is advancing rapidly, it is still very limited in managing the genuinely emotional, human-centric tasks required for effective employee motivation, leadership, and customer service. Human EI in all its forms remains essential.
Which leaves us with a provocative thought for you to consider based on the source material. Given the low correlation between ability EI, what you can do, your raw talent, and treat EI, what you think you can do, your confidence and self-efficacy, does the ultimate success of an emotionally intelligent individual depend less on their objective emotional reasoning talent and more on the simple confidence that they can successfully manage themselves and others?
A question of confidence versus competence played out on the global stage. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complex, two-faced world of emotional intelligence. We'll see you next time.